It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker, Mrs. Santoshi Shukla. She is self-assured with a sum total of 16 years of teaching experience both at UG and PG level. An enchanting yoga enthusiast, Mrs. Santoshi is a recipient of Rashtriya Gaurav Award from India International Friendship Society. At present, she is pursuing research in applied mathematics from Geetam University. A keen learner at heart, she has a number of presentations and publications in various national and international journals and has an ongoing minor research project to her credit. Apart from academics, she has been a part of extension service by giving a series of talks on Vedic mathematics at KB schools in Twin Cities. A perfectionist by nature, she is an active member of various committees in college, to name a few: steering committee, IQAC, admissions, UGC Paramarsh Scheme Committee, and cultural committee coordinator. For a more thorough outlook on the topic, I'd like to invite Ms. Santoshi. Over to you, Santoshi.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. A very good morning, one and all. I'm Mrs. Santoshi Mishra. And before I begin my session, I would like to thank my dear colleague, Mrs. Sabah Firdaus, for that overwhelming introduction. I would also like to thank my head of the Department of Mathematics, Dr. Nirmala Xavier, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of the 5-day online faculty development program for math teachers. So today I'm going to brief you about something called sequences and series. And sequences and series is one of the most important topics in real analysis. But then, 1 hour time isn't sufficient for us. So we are just going to, have a brief introduction to sequences and series. So where you can see my first slide here. In my first slide, you can see there is a messy library. And then you can see a table where everything is, in a haphazard way. And then also here, we can see a grocery where things are not placed in order. And here, this is a bus where, people are not standing in a queue, but they are, trying to barge into. So, well, when you look at this slide, we have a library, which is very, very well organized. We have a grocery store. And then here, you can see a bank. And then you can see, bus where people have formed a queue and they are entering. So now, what is the difference between the previous slide and this slide, I am trying to show you. I'm trying to show you that in our day-to-day life, we get, such things. We are, accustomed to all these things in our day-to-day life. What is the reason, for us to organize things? The main reason for us to organize things is to make our lives very easy and amicable. Now here, if I, go to a library where the books are simply, in a haphazard way, it's very difficult for me to, locate for a book. But then if, the library has the books arranged in an order, it becomes very easy for me to locate. Well, this is the case with numbers. Now, when you deal with numbers, that is when you deal with, numbers, we talk about infinitely many numbers. So when you talk about infinitely many numbers, if you have to go for, any kind of postulate or any kind of problem or any kind of theorem, it is very, very important for us to consider these numbers in an order, in a sequence. And that is nothing but a sequence. Well, we will go on to, the definition of a sequence a little later, but I would want to, share a short story with all of you. Way back in 17th century, I am not talking about now, I am talking about way back in 17th century, where forget about, the smartphones and laptops and desktops, they weren't calculators also. So there was, a math class going on. It's very, very obvious, even Professor Satyanarayana sir during his speech also told us that, when you talk about math teachers, they are a little firm. They are, very, very well organized. This is a universal fact which all of us knew about it. So here there was a math class going on and, suddenly the math teacher enters the class and all the students are like, firmly sitting and, looking at the teacher as to what assignment is he going to give me. Fine. So as soon as, the teacher entered, he asked all the students to add numbers from 1 to 100. Everybody were astonished. Definitely. Why? Because, this is a very easy task. Simple addition. It's nothing but the binary operation, between any two numbers. Everybody knows about it. But adding numbers from 1 to 100 is a tedious job. I mean, it is, time taking. But there was one chap in this classroom who within seconds, I am not saying minutes, but I am saying within seconds, he has, given answer to his teacher, and his teacher was, really shocked. So let me, just tell you how he has, done the calculation. Again, I'm telling you, there were no calculators back then. So here he placed all the numbers from 1 to 100 in an order. Now he's taken the first number, which is 1, and the last number, which is 100. So when you sum up 1 and 100, you get 101, that is 101. Similarly, he's taken the number 2 and he's taken the number 99. When you sum up 99 and 2, again, you are getting 101. Now, when you go to this number 3 and 98, so again, you sum up, you are getting 101. So this way, in an increasing order from the beginning, in a decreasing order from the end, when he started adding the numbers, all of them summed up to 101. Now, because we have 100 numbers, we are taking 2 numbers at a time, we have 50 pairs of numbers. So finally, 50 pairs of numbers, and then we are adding to 101. So 50 times 101 becomes 5050. So this was how the boy calculated this, or he's done this problem and submitted to his teacher. And the chap is none other than Carl Friedrich Gauss. So Carl Friedrich Gauss is one of the greatest German mathematicians of all times for his wonderful contributions to number theory, geometry, probability theory, planetary astronomy, which talks about planets and solar system, the theory of functions, and many more. His contributions are ceaseless, not only in the field of mathematics, but in the field of science and technology, and also problems which are related to engineering. Well, now let us move on to the formal definition of sequence. Now again here, when you talk about sequence, you are talking about sequence of numbers, and then you are talking about sequence of functions. So I will get back to sequence of functions a little later. So now what is a sequence? As I have already informed, sequence is nothing but it is a proper arrangement. See, now when you talk about numbers, use a set of natural numbers. Why do you call it a set of natural numbers? Set is nothing but well-defined collection of objects or elements. You cannot simply consider numbers as in how you want, because in mathematics, numbers are infinitely many. Because they are infinitely many, to go for any postulate, any kind of a theorem or any kind of a problem, it is very, very obvious that you need to consider an orderly arrangement of these elements, which is nothing but sequence. So here basically when you talk about a sequence, the elements or the numbers are in the form A1, A2, A3, A4 and so on. Now again, your sequence is divided into 2 parts: finite sequence, infinite sequence. So when you talk about finite sequence, the elements are only finite. When you talk about an infinite sequence, the elements are endless. There is no bound to that sequence. So here 1, 2, 3, 4, they denote the position of the sequences. So I have taken a few examples of here. As you can see, the first example talks about an increasing sequence where the numbers are powers of 2. 1 is nothing but 2 power 0, 2, 2 power 1, 4 is 2 power 2 squared, 2 cube, and so on. This is an increasing sequence because all of them are moving. I mean, here the first digit is less than second digit is less than third digit, and so on. So it is an increasing sequence. Coming to the next example, the sequence is decreasing where the numbers are, falling. And you have your third example where, it is an oscillating sequence where the sequence is oscillating, between -1 and 1. And finally, you have a constant sequence over here, which is nothing but 2, 2, 2, and so on. Now, basically, when you talk about an oscillating sequence here, all the elements in your domain, they are either mapped to -1 or 1. So how many ever elements are there in the codomain? But the range of this sequence is having only 2 elements, which is -1 and +1. Similarly, when you're dealing with a constant sequence, all the elements of your domain are mapped to your range, which is nothing but 2. So we do not, talk about the elements of the codomain. When you talk about mapping and function, you are talking about the elements which are mapped. Now, what is series? Now, unless and until we know what a sequence is, you cannot go for a series, because series exclusively depends upon the concept of sequence. So basically, when you talk about sequence, you simply consider the elements. But when you talk about series, it is nothing but the sum of the elements of your sequence. Now, as I have already informed, when you talk about sequence, it is divided into 2 categories. which is finite sequence and infinite sequence. Similarly, your series also has finite series and infinite series. But then again, in series, so many numbers. It is, you know, a little tedious for us to write. That is the reason we have this we have the symbol called summation, which denotes your series. Now here, as you can see in my first example, I have considered the elements or the numbers from A1 to AN. So AN is nothing but finite, where the series is, you know, stopping up till N. N can be anything, any number that you wish for. So summation I ranging from 1 to N AI. This is nothing but the formal notation of your finite series. And this is the formal notation of infinite series, which ranges from 1 to infinity. Now depends, series may either start from 1 or it may start from 0. So you can just see the example of here. I have taken, you know, both the examples, where in the first example, you have an infinite series which is starting from 0. Why is it 0? Because 1 can be written as 1 by 2 power 0. And here in the next example, we are considering summation n ranging from 1 to infinity, 1 by n. So now this is nothing, these are the two examples of infinite series. Now if you are limiting this infinite series to finite number of terms, that becomes a finite series. But basically, as I have already informed, we talk about real numbers. So because we talk about real numbers, they are infinite. And it is very obvious that your problems are also, you know, dealing with infinite sequence and infinite series. So now coming to your different types of sequences and series, we basically, you know, have 4 types of sequences: arithmetic, geometric, harmonic, and Fibonacci. So let us check out what they are. Now coming to your first sequence, which is arithmetic sequence. Here the terms are in the form A plus D, A plus 2D, A plus 3D, and so on. So this way, when you're trying to write the nth term of this sequence, it becomes A plus n minus 1 times D. Now as you can see here, the first number or the digit has started with A. The second digit is A plus D. So it's very obvious that the nth term becomes A plus n minus 1 times D. Now sum to first n terms. To calculate sum to first n terms, the formula is n by 2 times 2A plus n minus 1 times D. But we already know A plus n minus 1 times D is An. So here your 2A can be split to A plus A. A plus n minus 1 times D is substituted by An. And here your sum of first n terms formula goes n by 2 times A plus An. Now let us see a small example considering your arithmetic sequence and series. Now the example goes this way. There is a child who is trying to, you know, build a tower with blocks, and he uses 15 blocks for the bottom row. I'm repeating again, 15 blocks for the bottom row. Now each row has 2 fewer blocks. So here each row has 2 fewer blocks. Now, that means the bottom row has 15 blocks, and the next row will have 2 fewer blocks. So the common difference over here, the difference becomes -2, with A1 becoming 15 blocks, and there are 8 rows to construct the tower. So when there are 8 rows to construct the tower, how many blocks are used for the topmost row? This is the question. So what are we supposed to do? Simply use the formula An as A1 plus n minus 1 times D. So you can substitute the formula. Here n is nothing but 8, because the number of rows of here are 8 rows to form the tower. So A8 becomes 15 plus 8 minus 1 times -2. When you calculate, your A8 is nothing but 1. So there is just 1 block in the topmost row. Now coming to your B bit, how many total number of blocks is the child requiring to construct the tower? So total number of blocks to calculate, you are supposed to use this formula, which I have shown you in my previous slide, which is Sn n by 2 times 2A plus n minus 1 times D, or n by 2 times A1 plus An. So we know the values over here. After you substitute, your S8 becomes 64. So finally, the child requires 64 blocks in constructing the tower. We move on to your next sequence and series called geometric sequence and geometric series. Now this is a very basic level of your sequences, wherein which is, you know, taught in the school level. Your geometric sequence and geometric series, you know, where these are the formulae given, and for every formulae, definitely, you know, there is a postulate but I am just, I am just showing you how to apply the formulae in the problems. So here a geometric sequence is a sequence of numbers in which we talk about the ratio between the consecutive terms. So the difference between arithmetic sequence and this geometric sequence is there we are talking about the difference between the terms, and here we are talking about the ratio between the consecutive terms, which has to be a constant. So here to calculate nth term, we have a r par n minus 1, where r denotes the ratio between the consecutive terms, that is the terms which are side by side. Now, when you talk about geometric series, again, it is divided into two categories. You have finite geometric series and infinite geometric series. Now, the formula for finite geometric series, which is, only up to n number of terms, would be some summation I ranging from 1 to n, a r par I minus 1, and the formula is a times 1 minus r par n by 1 minus r, where r is not equal to 1. Because if you substitute r as 1, the denominator becomes 0, and hence this summation becomes undefined. Similarly, when you're going for infinite geometric series, your Sn formula is summation I ranging from 1 to infinity. A r par I minus 1 is a by 1 minus r. Again, this formula works only when mod r is less than 1. If mod r is greater than or equal to 1, the infinite series cannot have a sum because it becomes undefined. Now let us see a small application of geometric sequence. Now here your a 10th term is specified as 3 by 5, 12. A 15th term is specified as 3 by 16,384 of the geometric sequence. We need to find the exact value of the 30th term of the sequence. Let us see how to do it. So here we are using the formula a r par n minus 1. So which is a10 becomes a1 r par 10 minus 1, where a1 is your first term of your geometric sequence. So r par 9, a1 r par 9. So here your 10th term is already given to us in the question as 3 by 5, 12. 15th term is already given as 3 by 16,384. Now we are dividing the terms. When you divide the terms, your a1 gets cancelled, and this way your r par 5 becomes 1 by 32. But we need to find the value of r. So r becomes 1 by 32 par 1 by 5. So 2 raised to the power 5 is nothing but 32. So 5 and power 1 by 5 gets cancelled, giving us r equal to 1 by 2. So now here, after we calculate your common ratio, we need to calculate your a1. Now to calculate your a1, you can either substitute the value of r in a10 or a15 to get the answer. So your a10 value is already given to us as 3 by 5, 12. So 3 by 5, 12 is nothing but a1 times 1 by 2 whole power 9, because r is 1 by 2. So when we are solving this equation for a1, denominator value gets cancelled, and hence your a1 becomes 3. So this way, you know the value of a1, you know the value of r. It's very, very easy for us to calculate a30, which is nothing but a1 r par n minus 1, which is 30 minus 1, 29, and this is the answer. Now we move on to your next sequence called harmonic sequence. So if you know arithmetic sequence, if you understand arithmetic sequence, it's very, very simple, for us to understand harmonic sequence. Why? Because your harmonic sequence is nothing but a sequence which is formed by reciprocal of the terms of the arithmetic sequence. And the terms between any two terms of a harmonic sequence becomes your harmonic mean. Now, in order to find the nth term of the harmonic sequence, you need to first write the terms of the harmonic sequence in arithmetic form, that is arithmetic progression, calculate its value, the nth term, and take the reciprocal. That becomes your nth term of harmonic sequence. So here I've just noted down two simple examples. Now what is the ninth term of the harmonic progression? So this particular question orally we can calculate. Here 1 by 6, 1 by 10, 1 by 14, and so on. So if you carefully observe, the first term is 6, the second term is 10 with a common difference as 4, and the third term is 14, the common difference is again 4. So to calculate your ninth term, you can use the formula a1 plus 9 minus 1 times d. So your common difference is 4 here. When you substitute the value, you get your a9 to be 38. But then we need to find the ninth term of the harmonic sequence. So 1 by a9 becomes 1 by 38. What is the second question? What is the value of k so that these three terms, they form a harmonic sequence? So for this, we have a rule. If these terms form a harmonic sequence, then 3k minus 1, 1 minus 2k, 2k minus 1, they form arithmetic sequence. So to calculate the value of k, if I consider my first term to be a, second term to be b, the third term to be c, it becomes b minus a equal to c minus b minus a equal to, c minus b equal to b minus a. Anyways, you can calculate. So when we calculate here, your k becomes 8 by 9. So that is the answer for my second bit. Now, we finally move on to Fibonacci sequence. What is a Fibonacci sequence? So to define Fibonacci sequence, basically the first term and the second term are fixed, which is nothing but 0 and 1. And in your Fibonacci sequence, we have a relation called recurrence relation, which is given by the formula Fn is Fn minus 1 plus Fn minus 2. So we can just see over here 0 and 1, they add up to 2. 2 and 1, they add up to 3. 3 and 2, they add up to 5, and it goes on and so forth. So you can find, the real life examples of Fibonacci everywhere that we see around. So, but I have taken, one simple example, Fibonacci in nature. As you can see here, the flower petals, they are, following Fibonacci sequence. And here you can see 1, 2 petals, 3, 5, and so on. So this is, one wonderful example of, how mathematics is the queen of all sciences, because you see your mathematics everywhere. So who is Fibonacci? Leonardo Pisano Fibonacci, he was one of the renowned Italian mathematician who introduced us the major concept of Hindu-Arabic numerical system that, we teach at a pre-primary level to the students, and concepts of square roots, number sequencing, and various mathematical concepts were, formulated or postulated by Fibonacci. Now, it so happens that, we math teachers, we try to, master the, subjects, postulates, everything, which are given to us in the prescribed book. But then we do not, try to go for the person who is actually, behind this. So this was, one of the reasons why I had to, go for Carl Friedrich Gauss and Fibonacci here. So Fibonacci has become very, very famous because he solved a problem involving the growth of population of rabbits. So there is, one complete, a very big theory, which is related to the population of rabbits. But then, as per the time constraint, we cannot see it over here. Maybe in future, if we go for a series of such FDP programs, we can definitely go for it. Now the solution, which is generation by generation of the rabbits, it forms Fibonacci numbers, and this is how Fibonacci, numbers came into existence. Well, now we move on to sequence of real numbers. Now, before I move on to sequence of real numbers, let me, tell you what real numbers are. So real numbers are nothing but a combination of set of rational and irrational numbers. And more precisely, you can say they are nothing but set of natural numbers, whole numbers, integers, rational and irrational numbers. So let us, go for the sequence of real numbers. Sequence of real numbers is nothing but a function which is a mapping from set of natural numbers to set of real numbers, where your xn is denoted by f of n. So here, when you talk about a sequence, it is a function which is a mapping from set of natural numbers. So we got to understand that when we deal with a sequence, the domain is always set of natural numbers. That is the reason when you talk about or when you describe the limit of a sequence, you say limit n tends to infinity. Why? Because the domain of here is set of natural numbers, which ranges from 1 up to infinity. So the best example for your sequence, you can, give us Fibonacci sequence, which is again a recursive sequence, which already I have, shown you in my previous slide. So here are a few examples which I've jotted down. So you can see in your first example, the sequence is n cube, which is nothing but cube of the natural numbers. That is 1 cube, 2 cube, 3 cube, and so on. And this is an example of a sequence which is increasing. Now you have xn, which is 1 by n. So here the numbers are decreasing. So this is an example of a decreasing sequence. In the third example, you can see if you substitute n to be 1, it is minus 1 raised by 2, which is 1. If you substitute n to be 2, it is minus 1 raised by 3, which is minus 1. So for a sequence of all the odd numbers, this sequence xn approaches 1. When you substitute n to be even, this sequence xn approaches -1. Similarly, we have the fourth example of here, which is 1 plus 1 by n whole power n. So basically, when I say n, it nothing but talks about set of natural numbers. You need to keep on substituting the values of n to be 1, 2, 3, and so on to get the answer. Fine. If you just go back to the slide. Now in this, if you, just look at this. That is 1 plus 1, 1 plus 1 by 2 whole squared, 1 plus 1 by 3 whole cubed. There is no end to the sequence. So how are we, going to talk about the convergence and divergence of a sequence which deals with infinitely many number of terms? It is definitely impossible. But mathematics is something which proves impossible to be possible. And that is the beauty of convergence and limit of a sequence. So when we talk about convergence and divergence of a sequence, we got to register this in mind that we are talking about infinitely many terms of a sequence. Now, when you have infinitely many number of terms, you do not know what is the, you do not know where are they converging or where are they diverging, because dealing with infinitely many numbers, it is very, very difficult. So we have a beautiful concept of convergence, which talks about the convergence of infinitely many number of terms of the sequence. And the formal definition, the mathematical definition goes this way. If for every epsilon greater than 0, I will try to explain you what epsilon of here is. If for every epsilon greater than 0, there exists a natural number, some natural number, fixed natural number, such that mod xn minus x is less than epsilon for all n greater than n, then you say that particular sequence is converging. What do we mean by this? Why do we have to consider epsilon? What is the necessity? Fine. Now suppose you have a bike. You want to, move from one place to the other place. So you simply, definitely, you will, when you are, moving the bike from one place to the other place, you will say you have covered so much distance. You have covered so many kilometers. So in order to measure, you need some quantity. It is very, very obvious. See, length, distance, time, these are all nothing but, quantities. That is a different matter, when you talk about vector and scalar quantity. But to measure something, you need a quantity. Same way in real analysis, in mathematics, to measure something, you need a quantity. So here this epsilon is an arbitrary constant. Now, why are we specifying it arbitrary? Because we are talking about real numbers. And now, for example, if I, consider digit 1 and digit 2, layman doesn't understand what is in between 1 and 2. But in mathematics, when you closely observe, in between 1 and 2, there are infinitely many real numbers, that is set of rational and irrational numbers. And when you are talking about such a sensitive concept called convergence of sequence, you are talking about infinitely many numbers. So it is very, very obvious that you need to have some quantity to measure the distance. That is to talk about the neighboring points. So here, when I say x, it is a fixed limit. When I say xn, this denotes infinitely many terms of the sequence. Now, why is it that, we have this concept called mod xn minus x? See, now suppose if I substitute n as 1, this becomes mod x1 minus x, which talks about the modulus. See, modulus is basically nothing but to measure the distance between two numbers or two elements. So if I say x1, I am only talking about, I am trying to measure the distance of the first term of the sequence. With first term of the sequence with x, that is the limit. Similarly, when I say n as 2, I am talking about, or I am limiting myself only to the second term. And if I say n as 3, I am limiting myself only to the third term. But there are infinitely many terms. It is a tedious job. So what do we do up here? We go for the nth term. So in the sequence, what we do is, when you look at a sequence, you first note down the nth term. Why is it that, we are noting down the nth term? Because we are dealing with an infinite sequence. Now you take the nth term over here. If this condition holds good for the nth term, it is very, very obvious that it holds good for each and every term of the sequence. So here when I say mod x, now here when I say mod xn minus x, I am trying to measure each and every term in my sequence with a fixed limit, with a fixed value. So when I am measuring the distance, it can either be written as distance between xn and x, or simply you write it as mod xn minus x. And because here I am dealing with numbers which are very, very closely packed, I need to have a measuring quantity which is very, very nearing to a number called 0, a digit called 0. And we need to, now you may be thinking, why should we consider epsilon to be greater than 0? We are talking about distance between the terms, and it is definitely obvious that when you talk about distance, it's always a positive quantity. So when you talk about epsilon, delta, these kind of arbitrary constants in real analysis, we always say they are very, very negligible quantities which are slightly greater than 0. So here when I say mod xn minus x, I am trying to measure each and every term of my sequence. I'm trying to measure the distance of each and every term of my sequence with the fixed value. That fixed value is nothing but called my limit of the sequence. So limit as n approaches infinity. Why do we write n approaches infinity? Because as I've already mentioned, for a sequence, in your sequences, the domain is set of natural numbers. So as the domain is set of natural numbers, your n tends to infinity. So for all n greater than n. Here we have taken a simple example. Limit n tends to infinity, 1 by n. As n approaches infinity. Now we write approaches infinity because infinity is something which is undefined. It's a very huge value in mathematics whose value is, approximate. It is not an exact value. That is the reason why all the time when you talk about convergence in sequences, we write limit n tends to infinity. So 1 by n, 1 by infinity, which definitely will approach your 0. So this of here, when you talk about this is mod 1 by n. You can just see mod xn is mod 1 by n. So of your xn, the nth term is 1 by n. So when you basically split the sequence, what are the terms of the sequence? When you substitute n as 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, what are the terms of the sequence? They are 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 3, 1 by 4, 1 by 5 and so on. All these numbers are approaching the value 0. So this 0 becomes the limit for your sequence 1 by n. So this is nothing but the concept of convergence of a sequence. Now it's very obvious that, when you talk about convergence, you should also talk about divergence, because not all sequences converge. There are certain sequences which diverge also. So if a sequence, after you apply your limit, after you apply limits to the sequence, if your answer is either plus infinity or minus infinity, you say that particular sequence is diverging. That means here we say xn, this condition, mod xn minus x less than epsilon will fail. Because if mod xn minus x is less than epsilon, it is nearing to 0. It is converging. So because it is nearing to 0, you say xn is approaching x. But then if your xn is greater than some real number, where m is any real number, if your nth term of the sequence is greater than m, then this is nth term of the sequence. Then it's very obvious if it is greater than m. Let us say, I fix the value of m to be, let us say, 2 or 3. So xn is greater than 2. It is greater than 2 means it will take all the values from 2 to infinity. So there is no end to it. There is no bound to it. That is the reason this sequence, which does not obey the convergence formula, definitely diverges. So again, because we deal with numbers which are increasing and decreasing, you do have a sequence which diverges to plus infinity, which also diverges to minus infinity, depending upon your condition. Now we take a simple example over here. Now here we have the terms of a sequence as 1 cube, 2 cube, 3 cube, 4 cube and so on. So these are nothing but your cubes of the natural numbers, and hence it is very obvious that the nth term of the sequence is n cube. So when you apply limit to this, as n cube is in the numerator, when you apply xn, n tends to infinity. So this term will obviously approach infinity. So more precisely, if you are getting your definition into picture, then your n is greater than m power 1 by 3. Now how do we get this? See, here we need to understand that this is your n cube, which is greater than a fixed natural number n cube, which is again greater than m. Why? Because this is your n cube. It is greater than m, and it's very obvious that when you're taking power 1 by 3 or when you're taking this cube towards right hand side, your n is greater than m power 1 by 3. Again, it violates the definition of convergence of a sequence. So because it violates the definition of convergence of a sequence, it is very obvious that this is an example of a sequence which is diverging to infinity. Now we have another example of here. This already I have mentioned it just now. So once again, I'm telling you, as n approaches infinity, the terms of this sequence which are in the form 1 by n, that is 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 3, 1 by 4, they are all now, basically, even if you do not apply the limit also, I mean, in general terminology, because this is a very small example I have, considered over here, we do know that 1 by 2, 1 by 3, 1 by 4, it's a decreasing sequence. Because the sequence is decreasing, we know that all these numbers are slowly approaching 0 over the number line. But then there are certain problems which are very lengthy, which are very difficult. By looking at the problem, you cannot judge whether the sequence is converging or diverging. Hence, the concept of convergence and divergence is very, very important to deal with such problems. Now, we move on to the next topic called monotone sequences. Now, what are monotone sequences? I have already told you they're increasing, decreasing. So that is nothing but a monotone sequence. So basically, in monotone sequences, we have 4 types of monotone sequences. That is, we have monotonically increasing, monotonically decreasing, strictly increasing, strictly decreasing. Now, in monotonically increasing, the symbol becomes greater than or equal to, that is xn plus 1. That means here, your xn term is less than or equal to xn plus 1. Like I give you a simple example. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. You can just see over here, I've written a sequence over here, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. This is monotonically increasing. Why do we call it as monotonically increasing? Because you see, the first term of your sequence is 1, the second term of your sequence is 2, the third term of your sequence is again 2. So it is obeying the condition, less than or equal to. 1 is less than 2, 2 is equal to 2, 2 is less than 3. So that is the reason why this is an example of a monotonically increasing sequence. But strictly when I talk about set of natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on, it is strictly increasing, where xn is less than xn plus 1. Same way when I say monotonically decreasing, xn will be greater than or equal to xn plus 1. It's just a reverse concept. When I say strictly decreasing, then you say xn will be greater than xn plus 1. So as I have told, example, you can take sequence of n cube, that is 1 cube, 2 cube, 3 cube, that is strictly monotonically increasing. When I say 1 by n, that is strictly monotonically decreasing. Same way when I say minus 1 whole power n plus 1, this already I have taken this example in my previous slide. So this is a sequence which is not monotone. Because monotonic sequence means either the sequence has to be increasing or decreasing, monotonically increasing or monotonically decreasing, strictly increasing or strictly decreasing. But this is a sequence, I mean minus 1 whole power n. When you substitute n to be 1, what do we get? Minus 1 whole power 2, which is 1. When you substitute n to be equal to 2, minus 1 whole power 3, which is minus 1. So what is happening? Here this sequence, when you keep on substituting the value of n to be 1, 2, 3, so on, your answer is either minus 1 or 1. So this is an example of a sequence which is oscillating between minus 1 and 1, which is neither increasing nor decreasing. Hence, it is not a monotonic sequence. Now we move on to the next concept called subsequences. So as the name denotes subsequence, it is nothing but a part of the sequence.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
We are running out of time. It is 12:25.
Yes, sure, I'm sure. I'll try to wind up quickly. Yeah. So now here we have a subsequence. Now we have a sequence which is x1, x2, x3, so on, xn. So subsequence where the subsequence is of the form x suffix n suffix k, xn1, xn2, and so on. But in a subsequence, these n1, n2, n3, they should be strictly increasing. Only if they obey this condition of strictly increasing, we talk about subsequence, or we say that this particular sequence becomes a subsequence to your xn. Now we can take a general example, a very small example which I've taken over here. This is a sequence 1 by n. These are the terms. So 1, 1 by 4, 1 by 9, because it is obeying the concept of n1 less than n2 less than n3, definitely it is a subsequence. But over here, as you can just see, 1 and 1, the numbers are repeated. So this does not form a subsequence to this sequence. Similarly, 1 by 2, 1, 1 by 3, 1 by 4, 1 by 5, they are not subsequences to your 1 by n. Now we have convergence of series. Now as we have convergence of sequence, similarly we have convergence of series. Now as I already informed, infinite series depends upon your sequence. So basically what is a series? It is nothing but sum of the terms of your sequence, which is denoted by summation n times 1 to infinity an or n times 0 to infinity an. Now again, when we talk about an infinite series, the numbers are up to infinity. So we cannot judge the convergence and divergence of an infinite series. There should be some concept. And the concept of here is the concept of sequence of nth partial sums. So what do we do from this infinite series? We pick up the sequence of nth partial sum as summation k ranging from 1 to n ak. Now what we do is we consider that sequence of nth partial sum. We apply limit on that sequence of nth partial sums, and we check for the convergence of the nth partial sums. If the nth partial sum is converging, your series also will converge. If the nth partial sum is diverging, your infinite series also will diverge. Why do we consider this? Because technically, you cannot decide the convergence of infinite series directly. That is the reason why your nth partial sum is considered here. Now, this is an example of a series which diverges to infinity, because this sums up to 1 plus 1 plus 1, so on infinity. So its nth partial sum is n. When you apply limit n tends to infinity n, it tends to infinity. Hence, this infinite series will diverge to infinity. Same way as I have already told you here, this is an example of a series which is oscillating. Now you have to understand that when you talk about limit of a sequence, it is unique. Now here, this particular sequence converges to 1 when n is odd. I mean, it converges to 0 when n is even. So a sequence cannot have two limits. So that is the reason why this is an example of a series which is diverging, because it approaches two limits 0 and 1. Now we have another example here. So you can just see this series is 1 by 1 into 2 plus 1 by 2 times 3 and so on. So technically again, this is an infinite series. So we go for the nth partial sum, which is nothing but 1 by n times n plus 1, which can be written in the form 1 by n minus 1 by n plus 1. Now you go for sum to only n terms. So when you substitute k as 1, 2, 3, so on, the numbers become this way. So here, from your infinite series, we have considered only the sequence of nth partial sums. So all the terms in between are getting cancelled except for the first and the last term, 1 minus 1 by n plus 1. Now when you apply limit on this, 1 is a constant, it remains as it is. 1 by n plus 1, because n is in the denominator, it tends to infinity. And hence, the nth partial sum is converging to 1. Hence, the infinite series also will converge to 1. Now, finally, we have, D'Alembert's test or ratio test, which I have considered. Basically, infinite series is, one very big concept which has different, tests, to talk about the convergence or divergence. So this is one simple, ratio test which I have considered here, and the statement goes this way. If summation un is a series of positive terms, limit n tends to infinity, un plus 1 by un is converging to, it is equal to L. If L is less than 1, the series converges. L is greater than 1, the series diverges. When L is 1, the test fails to decide the nature of the series. Now, same way, if you are considering this as un by un plus 1, the conditions revert. A small example. Now, with this example, I will wind up my lecture. Now, test the convergence of the series. As you can see here, the series looks a little complicated, but it isn't at all. You can just, go for the numerator terms, 2, 5, 2, 5, 8, 2, 5, 8, 11. They are all in arithmetic progression with your first term to be 2 and a common difference to be 3. So, because it is an arithmetic progression, we can write the nth term. A plus n minus 1 times d, you are using the formula, so you get 3n minus 1. Same way for the denominator, separately again you go for the, because they are in arithmetic progression, you write the nth term. So this way, the nth term, this complete thing, 2 into 5 into 8 into 11, so on, 3n minus 1, by 1 into 5 into 9, so on till 4n minus 3, this complete thing becomes your nth term of this series. Now this is your un. Now you're writing your next term, which is nothing but un plus 1, because you need to use your D'Alembert's test or ratio test. You're dividing both of them. When you divide both of them, it's very obvious that all these terms get cancelled. You are only left with 4n plus 1 by 3n plus 2. Why? Because you're considering un by un plus 1. So as simple as that, you apply limit n tends to infinity. So this 4n plus 1 can be written as 4 plus 1 by n. 3n plus 2 can be written as 3 plus 2 by n. As n tends to infinity, 1 by n, 2 by n approach 0, and hence your answer is 4 by 3. Because it is greater than 1, as you can see over here, whenever the limit is greater than 1, that particular series converges if your nth term is un by un plus 1. Because we have considered un by un plus 1 and the limit is greater than 1, by your D'Alembert's test or ratio test, the given series converges. So with this, I end my talk. Thank you so much. Stay safe, stay home. God bless you.